Well, welcome everyone. Today we're having Splunk Day, and we have three panelists. We have Shuning, we have Chris Perkins, and Robert Ochoa. So we're going to ask you to please introduce yourself and your current position in your company.
Hi everyone, welcome. So my name is Shuning. I'm a senior solution engineer at Splunk. I've been with Splunk for a little over 8 years.
Hey folks, nice to meet you. Appreciate the time. My name is Robert Ochoa. I'm the director of cybersecurity sales at a small company called Advanced Network Management here out of Scottsdale. And I just recently came off a 23-year career at Cisco Systems, which was the company that acquired Splunk. So we have a lot of cohesivity up here today. Nice to meet you all.
Hello, good afternoon. Chris Perkins. I'm based in New Mexico, and I've been at Splunk for 4 years. In cybersecurity for about 18 so far. And my role at Splunk is as a solutions architect, which means I get to work with all states and local government across the United States in terms of cybersecurity architecture, engineering, and solution design, and anything else they want to do with technology.
Awesome. So how did you get started in your field, and what positions led you to your current job?
All right, so great. I love this question because I get to talk about Central New Mexico Community College, which is in Albuquerque. And a friend of mine, some 20 years ago, was going to Community College for Business Administration. And I said, hey, I like Dustin, I trust what he's doing, and I'm going to sign up for classes and go to business administration class. And one of the classes was Introduction to Computers, and I fell in love with technology and that curriculum and went to the Cisco Networking Academy and got my CCNA at the time, and it turned into an internship, which then turned into a job, and that job was at a small company similar to A&M, but it was acquired by a bigger company called Presidio, and I stayed there at that job for 10 years. Right out of school, and then I went to A&M, where Robert works now, and I was there for 4 years, and now I've been here at Splunk for 4 years, so 10 plus 4 plus 4, and that's how I got started.
That's awesome.
I'll try to summarize a 35-year career that quickly, but I'll tell you, I think it's a little bit of an interesting tale. Back in the late 70s, before the internet was what it is now, yes, I'm an old man. Citizens Band Radio was the social media I would equate of what is today. There was no internet, there was no social media, and I really gravitated towards Citizen Band Radio. It's a whole nother story. As a very young man, I learned how to install them in vehicles and everything about them, the frequencies, all the technology stuff that behind radio frequency and RF in general and RF engineering. So when I was 17, I joined the Army Signal Corps and worked on radios. And interesting thing, right out of basic training in the Signal Corps, it's like, hey, it's not just radio frequency and communications, it's cryptography. And I learned cryptography and secure communications in the Army, and it just spun out of control there. And I've been in cybersecurity since then for the last 35 years. So I'll spare you all the little jobs in between, but I worked at companies like 3Com and Lucent, AT&T, but most notably, I spent 23 years at Cisco Systems, where I was an engineer. I did about 4 or 5 different jobs there, but I started as an engineer, and then I moved into sales about 10 or 12 years into that. And then by the time I left, I was a business manager. I was leading the cybersecurity team for state, local, and education for the west part of the country right here out of Arizona. And you don't really retire from Cisco, but I left after 23 years. I went to a small identity and access management company called Okta for about 2 years, and now I've been at Advanced Network Management running their security business for the last 6 months.
So my career, not as long as Robert, it's a little over 20 years. I started as an international student. So I studied MBA, and my professor I was the graduate assistant for him, and he is he's not a computer science professor, but he was really into using automate, doing some research with the Excel, using Excel, and he want to use Visual Basic to automate some of the tasks. So that introduced me to computer science, study Visual Basic when I don't even know some basic concept of computer science. So I want to be a financial analyst because that's my major. But then there's no company sponsor financial analyst. So the job who will sponsor me H1 is technical support. So I started as a technical support engineer. Just one thing leads to another. So I work for Oracle, I work for Siebel. So now I'm at Splunk. Initially, I was tech support engineer. So now I'm a sales engineer, solution engineer. Yeah, that's my journey.
That's awesome. So you all had some pretty interesting journeys that you've taken. So if I'm a student, then what skills or competencies should I or are essential or that you are looking for in someone who you would probably hire?
I'm happy to take that one. This is a really great question. It's an important one, and I'm listening to I'm curious how diverse we're going to answer this question. I've done a lot of hiring in the cybersecurity industry, and I will tell you my experience only. So it's just coming just from my experience. I still feel like we have a negative unemployment situation in cybersecurity, meaning there is a deficit in cybersecurity skill sets that can't meet the demand of the workplace, right? So what happens, you have programs like this and programs all around institutions training people for these roles. So to try to answer the question more specifically, when I hire people, I'm looking for, to be succinct, the capacity to manage the business. You're like, Robert, what on earth is that? So I break that down into a couple of different things. I'm looking for people that don't know everything, because you can't possibly know everything. You're early in career, you don't know everything, but you have the work ethic and the capacity to handle all these different things that are going to come at you. You have the capacity to handle learning a new tool, okay? Splunk, tool A gets acquired into tool B. 4 years later, tool B is a totally different protocol. And the industry moves so fast, you have to be adaptive. So I'm looking for people with great communication skills, great people skills, and the ability to learn and adapt. And I can't emphasize that enough, because I feel like in our society today, you have a lot of people that want to, and there's nothing wrong with this, people make a living. I call it the Mountain Dew keyboard syndrome, where you want to sit in your dark basement with your Mountain Dew and type on the keyboard and code and write Python. That's great. If you want to do that, you should do that. That's a great career. My son is kind of like that. But the other thing that you're looking for is people that want to get out and shake people's hand and meet people in person, because business is done from a relationship perspective. So I answered the question from a sales perspective and from an engineering perspective. So happy to open that up to further dialogue, but I'll pause right there for a minute.
All right, I can go next, Shuning. So wrote down a couple of notes here, things that have got me to where I am today. I think understanding how others perceive value is very critical. So how people are compensated, how people are motivated, why people choose to do the things that they do. Why is there a deficit in security talent or employment? Understanding where there is an opportunity, right? If you can really hone in on what value is to others and understand how to maximize that opportunity for yourself and for your family, I think that that's one of the key points that I wrote down here. And then also an attention to detail, very thorough examination of of what you're doing, why you're doing it, right? I always like the methodology of the 5 whys. Why is this true? And then go in one level deeper and then ask why 5 times. If you can get to 6 whys, great. You're really understanding the fundamentals of what it is you're trying to solve for or what you're trying to accomplish. And just a couple of others, I think, things that have helped me get to where I am today, and open up opportunities for myself to help others across this country are creativity. So thinking outside the box, thinking, about that value. We're a uncharted territory kind of thing, right? The technology is ever changing, and the need for people to understand it is always changing, and it's always an opportunity for us to kind of help reach out and offer some thoughts, some perspective, just kind of be creative on how you reach out to those people and educate them, make them more aware, and help them overall. And then the last point, I think, find your passion. If you find something that you're passionate about and you have an ability to learn more about that and then bring it into technology, maybe your passion has nothing to do with technology, even better, because that will really unlock the creative capability of your own mind, right? And so I think if you can find something that you're passionate about outside of technology or outside of cybersecurity, find something that you're passionate about within technology and cybersecurity, and just understand where those 2 things intersect, or maybe there's more than 2 things. Just, we were talking about music and cybersecurity earlier. Robert is actually going to play the harmonica here. No, I'm just kidding. But find your passion, really, and share that with people, because when you do, and this is partially why I'm here and why we're here today, is to share with you our passion. Our passion is technology and cybersecurity and helping and teaching and informing others, right? And so if we can share that with you, then hopefully it comes across as genuine and authentic and meaningful, and that's how you connect with people, because ultimately business is done with relationships, not just cold calling people over the phone, right? And so let's reach out and be humans and be passionate about what we're doing. Lean in.
Okay, so so I have been in the hiring committee many, many times. So it comes down to 2 things. One is the people skill, and the other is the technical skill. And the people skill is so important. Any given day, your people skill is more important than your technical skill. So I will give 2 examples. The first example is in the interview, right? So in the interview, you see so many people come in. They can have very strong technical skill, but they don't know your company. These are just common sense, right? They come in, you ask, why do you want to come to, work for Splunk? They didn't research the company. They didn't, watch the video on what the product, and they did not install the software, right? If you do any of those immediately, you're already better than others. But when you come for an interview, you have to have some basic, we will test you Linux command, right? If you don't have the basic technical skill, also it won't work. And the other thing is at work, right? I would say for the people skill, people are more important than your work. That's what I learned. Your colleague, your boss, those people, they are your customer, they are more important. At the, at the end of the day, those are the most important thing. So, so at work, right, you work in team a lot. So nobody is perfect. People, some people are strong here, other people are strong over there. So we work in team all the time. So you need to be able to work in a team, right? Rely on each other. And the other thing is you want to be trustworthy. So the team, each person have a role. You need to deliver, right? Again, you need to deliver. That make people trust you. So on the top of my head, that's the two most important thing. And the technical skill, I would say just, you have to keep on learning because the industry, the market changes so fast. You will fall behind if you stay still. So as you can see, we are from the industry. You see Robert, he's still, keep on learning as you can, as he was saying, right? Even for us, you thought you learned the product, then it changes. So keep on learning. And the other skill, I would say, works wonders. What very important is never give up. So no matter it's learning or a project, if you failed, just get up and keep on going. You fail because you stop. As long as you don't stop, you don't give up, you're making progress, you will succeed. That's what worked for me.
Absolutely. Do you want to?
May I add one
Yes.
small thing? It was so compelling. Thank you both. That was great. I wanted to add something that you said. You started off with people and technology. And it is very, very difficult, not impossible, to teach people skills.
Absolutely.
You need to come to the table with that.
Yes.
We can teach you technology. I promise you, we can teach you technology. So think about that as you're going through that process. And then the other thing that spawned a comment from me from your discussion was you have to be a self-starter. One of the questions I ask in interviews is a little bit hypothetical, but if I was your boss and you didn't hear from me for 2 months, what would you do? You have to be a self-starter. You have to have that passion that Chris was talking about to be able to drive whatever the business is or the project is along. Anyway, this is a great discussion. I think we should move on to the next question. Thank you for letting me have volley number 2, but that was really compelling. Thank you both.
So it kind of is in the same line of you being able to be a self-starter, you going out and being that person who has those interpersonal skills. So how does the evolution of AI impact your job roles or your departments? How has that changed what you all do on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, so we were 15 minutes into it, 20 minutes into it, and you first bring up AI. So this is great. What is the definition of AI in this context, right? So that would be my first question, artificial intelligence, right? So calculators are artificial intelligence. Robots are artificial, like mechanical robots are artificial intelligence. So we need to understand how we use language, right? And I think understanding common language is key to your question, right? And so we can make some assumptions here that we're talking about algorithms, we're talking about generative AI, we're talking about large language models, right? Whatever the flavor of AI that we're talking about, I think it has to, under the hood or layers deep, it has to do with data. If we bring it down to data, I think we have to understand about data literacy. Right, so we're all learning technology here. We're all becoming technology literate. Right, back in the old days, we were all being taught how to read. Right, we were becoming just plain literate. And so one of the challenges that I think we have today, as educators and sellers and solutions architects, is getting across. What are you really trying to do? You want to use AI for what? What is it going to solve for you, right? And so I think understanding the problem statement, understanding what it means to that person and what it means to the project success or their initiative, those are all things that we need to kind of identify the common language first, and then we can move from there. But just going down the path of data literacy, there's a book that I recommend. It's called Be Data Literate. It's by an author named Jordan Morrow. And he talks about a couple of things. The 4 levels of data analytics: descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. Those are the 4 levels of data analytics, right? And so when you get into some of the large language models or Gen AI technologies, you're getting into the higher levels of those layers, right? And so we need to understand where technologies fit in terms of those layers. and we need to understand what we're trying to accomplish, right? And then just real quick, the other thing that the author Jordan Morrow talks about in his book are the 3 C's of data literacy. The 3 C's are creativity, critical thinking, and collaboration. So just understand that, just go get the book, read the book. It's a really quick book. You'll knock it out in a weekend. But I think the underlying questions around AI have to do with data, and the underlying skill set that I think needs to be present among people going into the next 5 or 10 years is understanding what data is, what doing things with data at scale really mean, right? And how does that solve problems?
So as you're asking, I'll add another little tidbit. As a student, and we actually also use AI for some of the things that we do in the classroom, what would I be expected to bring to the table with utilizing AI?
Those are great questions, and I loved your take on it. I'm going to be really candid with you on a couple of fronts. I personally was hoping, this will sound silly, AI would go away before I retired and I wouldn't have to deal with it. A little bit of a joke, but honestly, because it is a life-changing technology. It's not new. The generative part is new, and what we're about to do with it is new. But the technology is not really new. So much like when the internet was first born, we thought we knew what was going to happen. When you fast forward a couple decades, we had no idea. When someone tells you they're an AI expert today, it just means because they know that much more about it than you do. Okay? Nobody's an AI expert yet. Nobody can predict what's about to happen. You'll hear it all the time. So what do you take away from this? What I think we all, not just you folks, what I think we all need to know about AI right now is a couple of things. You first, and this is going to be easy for you, you need to know how to use it, because it's going to impact every aspect of your life, whether you like it or not, and it's not going away. I wish that wasn't true, but I believe it is. The second thing is to understand that trust and risk are real words that you have to, and things you have to consider when you're interacting with AI. So while you need to know how to use it and how to use it responsibly, you also need to know how it works. Not every detail, right? But fundamentally, how does it work? Where's the data stored? Chris mentioned a few acronyms, large language models and things like that. You want to familiarize yourself with the fundamentals of it. But the second piece I was talking about was, how do you manage the risk around AI? And you're like, well, what risk is there? This is great. I can tell it, write my resume. The generative piece is fundamentally, it's amazing, but the risk is this. Today in the marketplace, and people are calling it many, many different things, but there's a dozen companies that spawned up in the last 6 months, and that's an understatement, around AI security, and analogous to thinking it's an AI firewall. Okay, I think most of you know what a firewall does, right? I get to see some heads, right? Prevents policies and things from going from one place to another place. So when you interact with AI, if you inadvertently use company information or personal information, that's stored somewhere, right? It's not just Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. We're talking about an entity that is really omnipresent and will learn and proliferate. So if you don't want your corporate secrets, go onto a generative AI and say, hey, what are the salaries of the top 5 executives at American Express? Bam. Because someone asked that question before and it got out. So my point is, technologies are starting to spawn where they're preventing people inside organizations from inadvertently, accidentally, or through social engineering being coerced to give away PII, or private information. And so continue to learn how to use it was my first comment. And then secondly, understand how it works. And I guess third, is to understand what's being done to secure that data. If you have that rounded knowledge, I think you'll be part of the group of young adults that just launches AI into the stratosphere, because I really think that's where it's going.
So for AI, right? It's one of the change, like many other technology, right? So it really help my own life, right? So let's say I'm a solution engineer, sales engineer. I need to write write up some things, right? So I can just go to ChatGPT and it help me tremendously. And also Splunk as a company, no matter it's individual or company, right? Just embrace it. It's like the only thing that doesn't change is change. So Splunk already in our product, right? We have incorporated AI. So we have the same solution. One of the main thing we incorporate is predictive and analytics, right? Based on all those algorithms, we can predict the events many, many minutes, sometimes 30 minutes ahead of time. And that's what, a solution company, agency looking for. So, yeah.
Thank you. We're going to jump back to Chris because I know you have something else to say about that question. Since I added something else to it after you had answered.
Sure. No, I love Robert and Shuning's responses. I've been just kind of racking my mind here and writing down some notes, and I think Robert makes excellent points around knowing the fundamentals, right? Knowing exactly what it is you're trying to do. I just want to emphasize that again, and also throw out a plug for the Open Data Institute. ODI is a really good source of information, so that way you can really hone in on the use of data, right? Robert mentioned that, the use of data, the storage of data, the sharing and the governance of those things, right? Understanding how data is being used, right? There's this phrase that comes to mind, nothing about us without us, right? So don't collect data on me if I don't have a seat at the table on how you're going to use that data, right? I know that's kind of a radical kind of notion, but I think it's very key, right? Especially if you're collecting data on, I live in New Mexico, right? And I always think about how to go to a large language model like ChatGPT and ask, how do I end food insecurity in McKinley County, right? Which is one of the most rural and impoverished counties in New Mexico. How do we end food insecurity, right? And you would need data to do that. You would need school attendance data. You would need data from government agencies like SNAP and TANF and things like that, right? So how do we actually use this data for good, but also make sure that it's secure, make sure that it's not shared with third parties that ultimately monetize that data? So I think this all comes down to that critical thinking skill that I think we all need to sharpen over time, because a healthy skepticism is going to allow us to question the data, or question the people collecting the data, question the results, right? And really drive towards the solution. Are we trying to end food insecurity? Are we trying to make money doing so? Right? There's different goals that people will have, and you can't always understand what their goals are because a lot of people are sketchy at best, right? And so let's use data as our tool, as our power, instead of as something that we are just the product of.
Those are very good points. All right, so how can students leverage what they're learning in the class in regards to cybersecurity? How can they gain that personal experience or gain that practical experience outside of the classroom? We have things that we try to implement on a university level, but what are some things that they can do on their own to help prepare them for a position that would be technical or in the cyber field?
I would say ask a professor if he need any help, or look for any opportunities like internship, right? But I know it's hard because my son, when he was in college looking for internship, it's not easy. So then what you can do is you can create a study group, right? You have your friends, maybe start it somewhere, right? Just and then just help each other. Volunteer opportunity, not necessarily internship. That's what I'm, suggesting. Just start it somewhere, like Robert was saying, right? You, with your friend, you can start a small project, and then just talk to professor, career center. Just never give up. Keep on looking for opportunities. Yeah, that's my short answer.
That was a great answer. This is hard to do. Like you mentioned it was difficult for your son. I have 3 kids. My youngest, one's 22 and a senior at Northern Arizona University. And I have some experience with this in that I know what you're up against. It's difficult. So that's great advice. What I would do, and this isn't easier either, if you can figure out low-cost resources, and we can talk about those offline if you want, Raspberry Pis, anything, but to figure out how to build some sort of a home lab so that you can touch things and physically understand them, not just read about them. It has to be tactile. Like you mentioned, you're interviewing people and they never researched the company. They've never installed the software. Doing something, a lot of people learn from doing. I'm one of them. Some people can learn extremely well from reading. So I would say figure out a way to build a home lab and take a couple of your favorite technologies you maybe don't know anything about and build it in your lab and fail and see what it does and research it and use AI to help you. I would also say volunteer, which is extremely difficult. Volunteer for what? Who's going to have you volunteer for their mission critical biomedical upgrade in the hospital, right? But you'll figure something out. When you network and you meet with groups, and there's plenty of these groups around here in the Valley, you're part of one now, you'll network and you'll find people. The final thing is, depending on your interest, and this will ebb and flow, because some of you think I'm not doing that. Learn how to use the command line to code things. Even if it's simple, hello world, print hello world, write your first shell script in Linux. Try a language, a modern language like Python, and do something really, really small. Even if you just went to an AI tool like Copilot or ChatGPT and said, write me a simple Python script that does this, and stare at it and go, how is it doing that? What's the context? And break it down and try to change it and break it. I'll tell you why. I've been coding, I'm horrible, writing shell scripts and things for a very, very long time. And no matter what I'm doing in my life, career, whether it's horses or sales, I still am on the command line and I learn how to code because it grounds you in the way things really work and that everything is code. And what's happening in the world today is that code is abstracted. It's all inside graphical user interfaces and you don't get to see the code. If you view source code of HTML, how many of you can read it and understand what that's doing, right? Good. You should be able to do that because when you fundamentally know, when you start a 2-stroke engine by pulling it, that the spark plug fires and this is how the thing works, you're a whole lot prepared to deal with things when that Briggs & Stratton engine doesn't start. Same with software, right? When you understand the networking basics, you're trying to get into cybersecurity, but if you understand networking at a fundamental, that's going to help you with cybersecurity. And I will submit that learning how to code, even if it's incredibly basic, will also do the same thing.
So I think there's a couple of themes that keep emerging here that I'm listening to. Knowing the fundamentals, right? Robert, you keep going back to that. You made me think of math, right? How are you supposed to use a calculator if you don't know actually how to do the work by hand? Another point that I'll underscore that Robert made is grow your network. You have one now. You have us 3 as part of that now as well. We're always on LinkedIn. We're always happy to help, extend a hand, and offer any kind of advice or 2 cents, if you will, at any point in time. I wrote down some of my answers here. So teach, Robert mentioned that as well. I've been a volunteer computer science teacher at Santa Teresa High School, which is on the border of Mexico and New Mexico. And that's a really wonderful experience just to help people learn, right? That's through the Microsoft TEALS program, TEALS. So I definitely think that teaching is a great way to learn. Write stuff, create content, right? Whether it be a video, whether it be an article, whether it be a blog post. I do a lot of the writing, so if you go to, if you look at my Medium page, I have 13, 14 articles. Since,
You are very, very good at that, by the way.
Thank you.
Very good.
Well, I mean, if you all want to check those out, please please do. And you know what I tend to do is I look at something that someone else wrote, right? Like Open Data Institute or the National Association of CIOs, Chief Information Security Officers, Chief Information Officers. They'll write up a white paper. They'll write up an academic paper. Oh, great. Let me read that and let me write my own thoughts on that, like an opinion piece, right? And so you're just, by way of teaching others, you have to really break things down in your own head so that way you do understand the fundamentals. And then you can teach others and bring those other folks with you, right? So when the water rises, all boats rise kind of thing. So these are all like philosophies, right? Another philosophy is you all, you know, Robert mentioned that there's a deficit or there's a need for cybersecurity talent in our industry, right? It is still a competitive field. You all are still competing with each other technically on that one position because there are not hundreds of positions open at the same time. So there is competition, and so I think doing all the things that we're mentioning here are going to allow you to set yourself as a differentiator or set yourself away from your peers so that way you are the one that's selected for that role, right? But more tactical or more practical, YouTube University, right? I mean, that's what I call it. Just go to YouTube and just learn how to set up your own lab, learn how to access those free portals, right? SANS.org is a great place to access curriculum paid and for free. Splunk has some downloads. You can download Splunk Attack Range, which is a whole virtual environment that you can deploy attacks and you can see what they look like on your own laptop. You can download Splunk for free today, and you can put 500 megs of data in that instance for free, right? And then I think GCU actually has a partnership with Splunk, which allows a 10 gig license. So you can put all kinds of data in as part of the university's instance. And then you have like the big cloud providers like AWS, Google, and Microsoft, and they will actually make their content and curriculum available for free because and Cisco as well. The idea there is if they teach you and give you this curriculum, then you are going to be skilled on their technology, and that's going to ultimately help them proliferate their technology throughout the industry. So that about wraps up my thoughts on that. Good question.
Thank you. All right, so we are actually going to open the floor up for any questions that you all may have. I know we have some that have some burning questions, so I'm going to open the floor now. And if you would, please wait for one of the student workers to bring you the mic, just as Joe mentioned before, we are recording, so we want to make sure we capture that question.
So concerning computer science and artificial intelligence, what mainly is like the difference between like the different fields, and how does it apply in cybersecurity, and what are the different types of like emphasis that you guys have based on like the different types of careers from computer science and then from artificial intelligence specifically?
Miss, that is a fantastic and really tough question. and it's tough for me, but I'll answer it from my perspective. It's tough for me because a lot of those technologies blend together for a rounded experience in cybersecurity and technology. But as you pointed out so eloquently in your question, they're very exclusive as well. So computer science is I think, rather self-explanatory from that, but you can get a degree in computer science. And it focuses on the word we used earlier, like the fundamentals of how machines work, and subsequently how machines interact with each other through the network. And then when you get into AI, and again, I'm going to tell you very transparently, I'm not an expert. Few people are, very few people. AI and large language models and these learning models, they have a unique engineering skill set behind them because they're designed for very specific tasks, not necessarily general tasks. So when you're creating a large language model, it takes a set of skills to understand the physical storage of the data, the virtual storage of the data, the observability and the abstraction and indexing of that data. And I don't know, my co-panelists here might know, what degree and education do you go into that field? It used to be you couldn't even get a degree in cybersecurity. You just hire someone from Starbucks and teach them because that's going to be your best bet. Now you can get a degree in cybersecurity. I may be a little bit behind the times on that, but I struggle to see large curriculum programs really focus on AI. So that's my initial take. I'm sorry that I probably did not answer your question, but I'll just try to summarize it by saying that each of those three things you pointed out, I feel like are mutually exclusive disciplines around cybersecurity and AI, and when you put them together, you have a very well-rounded individual that understands sort of cradle to grave in that industry.
So yes, agreed. It's a great question. I'll just take a quick shot at a couple of points here. So I think in cybersecurity, there's attackers and there's defenders. We're all here on the defender side, right? So from the attacker side of things, large language models, generative AI types of technologies, these advanced technologies are just that. They are advanced and they're sophisticated, and the quicker we learn to harness them and use them, the quicker the attackers learn to harness and use them, the more damage they can create, right? From our side, it is also an accelerant. If we can learn how to use them to fortify our defenses, to define better attacks, or defenses for those attacks, or educate users, right? User education is such a big piece of this. So social engineering campaigns or phishing campaigns, we can use those technologies to better educate our user population, right? We can use technologies like, hey, ChatGPT, write me a Splunk query that helps me understand how many Windows hosts that run this version and are susceptible to this CVE. And using natural language, we can now ask the data those questions instead of having to key in the syntax specific to that question, right? And so that makes us faster. Now, whether we do something in a quick amount of time is a whole other question, but at least we know that information, and that's step one. So I think it's an accelerant on something that's very, very serious. We all work in state and local government and education across this country, and for me, I have a kind of a whole mission, if you will, to better align all of us, because we have 50 states and 18,000 jurisdictions that do things slightly different. And so can AI help us find common language, find common process, find common goals and milestones and things like that? I think it can. But none of us have the crystal ball with us today. So your guess is as good as ours, I think. But at the same time, we're anxious to see what it does and how it can better help us defend.
Thank you.
And we're going to give you 30 seconds to answer this question.
So regarding AI, once again, there is new tools such as Devin, which is a AI software engineer, and I think that it's very much affecting like people's job security and how exactly people are going to like use that. I guess my question is, as an employer, how exactly are you going to take that into account when you hire people, and is there any new things that we should learn in order to compete against things like Devin?
I have 30 seconds, Steven says. Or we have 30 seconds. So, before cars were safe to drive on the road, there was a team of like 6 people that had to have flags and hand signals to warn the public that a car was coming through, that an automobile was coming through. So it really brings me back to those types of stories where we are so afraid of it because we don't know about it, right? And so to your question about what do we do to kind of curb the risks of it competing with us, there are things that generative or AI technologies can do, and there are things that humans can do, like have sound judgment. Machines cannot have sound judgment. They will do the things that people or humans tell them to do, right? And so if we can find our craft and our skill set and use our own judgment, then we are going to do something that they cannot do, right? There's other things like that, but I'm going to keep it short for the interest of time. But just know really well what the machine can do and what we can do, and then do more of that.
Maybe I will just add a little bit. So for AI, at least, there's a lot of job in the company. AI is just a small portion of it. So know it, but if know a little bit is fine. If you want to go into that field, study a lot. Otherwise, you don't need to spend so much time.
Yeah, hello. So just like one question. This is like not really AI related, but it's like more interview related. So what's like from an employer standpoint, what's one technical skill that seems like the one you look for in the most, or that makes like a potential employee more attractive for the position?
Another great question. And it is difficult to answer, and I know you don't want to hear it depends, but my answer would be, we use the word fundamentals a few times now. So I think the fundamentals of all things computer are with the network. I actually do. A lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I would say if you have network fundamental skills, that is a great launching pad for any skill in technology. It really is.
Single word answer, troubleshooting.
Well, we thank you all for coming. Let's give our panelists a hand. They had some great answers. We are actually going to stop here and finish, but if you all want to come and talk with our panelists, if you have questions that they didn't ask or you want to continue to ask more questions, they will be here to answer those questions for you. Thank you all for coming.